kind of tell me why you were there on that farm.
Well, we initially received a call that a man who lived at that address was in a dispute with a farmer who farms the fields there. The fields that the farmer was working could only be accessed by this man's driveway, Shane Roush. And Shane had barricaded the driveway at a bridge. There's a waterway that runs through there, so there's a choke point, and he parked his truck on there. And nobody could get through, so they're having a heated debate about this driveway. We got called down to settle the dispute.
Yeah, and you from what I read, the dispute was kind of settled, and then it like everything was you were going to go on your way, and then someone tipped you about some possible marijuana plants.
Apparently, you can see over Roush's privacy fence from inside of a combine, and so the farmer realized, that's marijuana growing in there. And since we were there, and he was pretty upset with Roush, and he decided enough was enough, and that's when he told me that there was marijuana growing back there.
So you drove your SUV back there and was just getting out to go take a peek at it?
Yeah, the landowners were there, so I asked them if they could show me where the property lines were, since I can't go onto Roush's property and violate his rights by poking in where I shouldn't be. So they showed me where their property was, and so that way I could go and investigate without violating his rights.
And what happened when you got out of your SUV?
Well, I got out to walk around and get my camera from the other side, and about 2 steps after I got out the door was when I heard the pop, pop, pop of the rifle behind me, and started feeling these burning hits on my body.
To explain how many times you were hit?
4 times in very quick succession. The first shot hit my groin. The second shot hit my left side of my rib cage. The third hit my left foot and kind of went sideways across my foot. The fourth is the one that dropped me to the ground, and that hit my left femur about 2 inches above the knee and just shattered the femur.
Did you know what was going on? I mean, initially when you first started getting shot?
I did, right away. I heard the pops, and it felt like an eternity as you're realizing exactly what's happening, but in reality it was just a fraction of a second when you hear the pops and then you feel these burning hits on your body. I tried to run. I only made it about 2 steps and had that forward momentum when the one hit my leg, and that's what kind of threw me to the ground. And I would be willing to bet 99.9% of all civilians in that same situation would have gone into shock, and that would have been the end of it. But you reacted differently. Well, you could certainly feel the shock, and there's so much going on in your mind when something like that happens. I experienced fear, doubt, panic, so many things just shooting through my mind all at once. It was like my brain was screaming. You don't really know which thing to feel first. But when I hit the ground, all those thoughts had their chance, and then it was almost as though training kicked in, and I thought, okay, it's my turn now. Panic had its turn, and I reached for my gun, and after that, everything just became extremely calm, in my mind, and there was nothing but my gun and the guy that was trying to kill me.
And it must have felt like something that you'd seen on television, or a scenario you guys had practiced maybe ever since you'd been a deputy. But and then it was reality. This calmness, was this just something that like training kicked in and you just started automatically reacting and knowing what to do?
I never expected it to be calm, ever. There's with all the training that we go through, I've tried to imagine scenario after scenario. What if I get shot? What if my partner gets shot? What if all these what ifs that you try to run through your mind over and over, just to try to have your mind be somewhat prepared in the event that something like this happened. But honestly, I never expected to be calm when I hit the ground and enter into this gunfight.
And weren't you in like an extraordinary amount of pain?
Not yet. I was, I think, too much in shock yet. The pain first hit when they were loading me onto the backboard to carry me over to the helicopter, and they had put oxygen on me, got me on the backboard, and when they put the oxygen tank between my legs so that they could carry the board, it hit my left knee that had just been shattered, and that's the first time that I actually screamed in pain. And that was 20 to 25 minutes after the shooting.
Well, so you were returned fire to Roush, and what happened at that point? Was he trying to take you out? Was he trying to move and take you out? Oh, is this too much? Yeah. Okay. Tell me. Well, you tell me, Sheriff. You tell me where's a good spot to go from here.
I guess the term of, was he trying to take him out? Stuff like that.
I see.
At this point,
Yeah.
We got to be careful.
Okay. Well, help me
did
phrase
the shooter
something.
maybe move to
Yeah.
get there?
Okay.
But to say that was too.
Yeah.
You and I know, and we know that's what it was for, but I'd be leery using that on.
Okay, and that is a good point, because I'm assuming that he was attempting to kill you when he's moving around, and we don't know what his intent was. We just know what his movements were.
We just say he moved.
Yeah, so he started moving, and what happened at that point?
During the fight, I did see him start coming around my Blazer, because most of the shooting, the exchange, happened to where I was shooting underneath of my Blazer, and a large number of his shots were hitting the back side of my Blazer. I remember hearing the back window shatter, and both rear tires. I remember distinctly the sound of the air just blowing out of the tires. But at one point he did start to come around. And then I could see most of his whole body and his weapon at that point. And I don't really remember how many shots he took while he was there. I know we exchanged more gunfire there. But then he turned and started shooting in the direction of the civilians, the landowners that were up by those silos. I don't know why his attention left me. But I did find later that there was a graze wound on my shoulder, and the way I had been shooting, that's where my head was, so I can only assume that my head was the target. But then he turned and started shooting at the civilians, and slowly was moving back to where he had been before, and I could then see him again underneath my Blazer, and I expended my last couple of rounds of ammunition in my gun, and the next thing I knew, he was on the ground waving his hands in surrender.
Because you must have shot him in the legs or something, right?
Yeah, I found out later it was the tibula-fibula on one leg, and I think the ankle and/or heel on the other leg.
Were you nearly being out of ammunition at this point?
Yeah, it was the last bullet in my gun that ended the fight.
You probably didn't know that at the time, did you? Or are you told to count in your head?
I can't even do that in training, I'll be honest with you. I've tried, and I can't do it. I had no idea. In fact, when he was holding his hands up in the air, I was still keeping my gun on target in case he changed his mind. But after a few seconds elapsed, I started to take stock of the whole situation, and that was when I looked at my gun and I realized the slide was locked back.
So, I mean, let's kind of jump forward now. You've been transported, and did you? I heard rumors that maybe you used your cell phone. Did you use your cell phone? And can you talk about that?
Well, when I tried to drag myself over to the Blazer because I saw his wife come onto the field, and I didn't know right away what her intentions were. I knew I had a rifle in the truck. I was out of ammunition in my handgun, but I had a rifle, and I had a few more bullets in there just in case she had ill intentions for the guy that put her husband on the ground. I started running out of strength as I got there and realized that when she was coming out there, it looked like she had a bottle of water in her hand, and I kind of just realized, you know what, that doesn't seem like somebody who's a threat. She's going out, at that point anyway, it appeared she was going to tend to her husband, not come after me, and that was as I was starting to lose strength as well. So I stopped at that point, stripped off my equipment from my belt, and used it as a tourniquet around my leg. And then at that point is when I tried to make a phone call. I grabbed my BlackBerry that had been, it was a department issue BlackBerry that was on my left hip, found that it had a bullet, had gone through it, and was dead. So I couldn't use that. So I had to wait until, Mrs. Levering was waiting until Sergeant Chalfant got the suspects in custody, and then she came to my side to see if she could help in any way. I had her get my phone off the passenger seat of the Blazer and told her how to use it so she could find my wife in the phone book, and called my wife to let her know what was going on.
How hard was that call?
That was pretty tough. Got a little choked up because, I knew what it was going to do to her emotionally, and I love my wife a great deal, and that's not something that you want to do to your wife, is say, look, I could be dying, I've been shot really bad, you need to get to the hospital, and I'm going to be flying in. But at the same time, she deserved to know what was going on, so I had to give her a call, and at least, because I didn't know how badly I was hurt. It was getting hard to breathe. That was kind of scary. If nothing else, I wanted her to make sure to know that I loved her, and if it was my final conversation with her, then she needed to know that my thoughts were of her at the time. I had no intention of checking out, but I wanted her to know, just in case.
Wow. I mean, I've been doing this for 23 years, and I hear stories like that. I mean, that sends chills, because I've been married for 35 years, and I can't imagine ever making a conversation to my wife like that. So she worries because the industry I'm in, but my industry is 1/10 as dangerous as yours is. So, I mean, it sounds like everything you've done. I mean, if someone was to go back and look at this, they probably would make out and I'll ask the sheriff this later, but it's almost like they'd make out a scenario of, here's the things you could do, here's the things you might do, and here's the best things you could do. And it sounds to me like you did pretty much everything that would be expected of you and more in a situation like that. Is that right?
I like to think so. Looking back on it, I've learned a lot of things that I could have done differently. I certainly would have carried reloads from my sidearm. And one might say, well, that's just common sense, but sometimes you get complacent and you don't do the things that you ought to do. So, I've learned some things, but we have an excellent firearms instructor here, Greg Perry, and he's very keen on teaching us to use our minds in a situation when things get out of control. And so I credit him for, in a big way, for being able to keep my mind in that situation.
Yeah. So now you've been med-flighted to Grant, right? And do you have memories of that and at Grant that first night?
Not very much. I was very tired. You get that battle fatigue when you've been through something that stressful. Once the stress is gone, the body wants to shut down, and one of the biggest things you want to do is fall asleep. When they rolled me off the helicopter, all I remember is I asked for a stress ball so that I would have something to squeeze when they were moving me around, and I asked the first nurse I could find if it was okay if I went ahead and went to sleep, because you never know. There's always a lot of wives' tales about, if this happens to you, don't go to sleep. You don't want to go. So I just waited till I found somebody and said, can I please go to sleep? After that, I remember waking up in ICU after like 8 or 9 hours of surgery.
Well, I can tell you, I went to Grant as soon as we heard about it because I knew what the turnout would be, and you can't imagine, and the sheriff would know this, how many officers showed up: Columbus Police, OSP, deputies from all over counties. And I mean, you guys have quite a brotherhood that I'm always proud every time there's an officer shot, what happens, the kind of support. What does that mean to you, that kind of support beyond your family, the fraternal brotherhood?
I'll tell you, it's the next best thing to a family, having, you got that love of your wife and kids when you're at your house, but when you're out here and you've got people whose lives depend on you and your lives depend on them, and to know that you can count on them in thick and thin, it's the best feeling in the world.
I mean, you guys are like soldiers in a way. You guys have experiences that no one else can have any understanding, even me that goes to scenes and sees scenes. I'm not involved in the scene, so it's not the same thing. So what else about the officers? What else would you like to say about them, the support, or what's been going on since that time?
You caught me off guard with that one.
Well, I mean, is there? I mean, I know they showed what I saw. They showed a lot of support at the hospital, and I'm be willing to bet that you're probably getting support, ever since then through your therapy and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, it hasn't stopped. I get a lot of feedback and support through Facebook. There's a lot of friends and coworkers and fellow officers from around the state, even around the country at this point, who stop in from time to time just to see how I'm doing, and it's a really good feeling knowing that people are thinking of you and rooting for you.
How about your family? What's the support been like with your family?
It's been really good. I know my one sister, she lives out of state, so that she calls me from time to time just to see how I'm doing, make sure I'm all right. My other sister will bring dinner by every now and then just to help, because I've always been the one that cooks at the house. I love cooking, and it's just always worked out that way. So it's a little harder to get around the kitchen now, and so she'll bring supper by from time to time, and of course my parents are always there if I need anything.
Well, what kind of shock? I mean, has your parents or your wife relived kind of what the shock was when you try to prepare yourself probably as a deputy's family, but I mean, there's no way to prepare yourself. Have they explained how difficult that was?
I haven't really talked to my parents about it because I don't want them to have to relive those emotions. I did talk with my sister a little bit, and you could just kind of picking her brain a little bit about how things went that day. And as much as my parents may have tried to prepare for that possibility, I even tried to imagine, okay, what if my son goes into law enforcement? Can you really prepare for that? That's just especially to think that there's a great possibility that in the next couple hours you may outlive your child. Those are some horrible things to have to go through, and I just can't even imagine.
Anything else about your family you'd like to give kudos, or anything about your family that's kind of been special, something maybe you'd like to talk about? I don't want to pry too much.
No, I do want to say my wife has been a real trooper through all this. It's not been easy for her. Number one, an event like this could tear a marriage apart very easily. We have an awesome relationship. We've known each other. We met each other in the 6th grade. Started dating in high school. We have a great marriage, but it's still, that doesn't make it any easier for her to see that her husband was almost ripped out of her hands. But even when she has to get strict with me if I'm trying to do too much, she's there. She says, "Let me get that. I'll do that for you." If I need something, boom, she's there. My kids, they're only 10 and 7, and if I need my water cup refilled, they'll come grab it, go fill it up, and bring it back to me at the chair. And no attitude from them. Kids don't like to be running around doing chores all the time, but so I've got a very supportive family, and they've just been great.
Well, how tough has the therapy been? I mean, you were telling me that you got shot in the side, and the groin, and the thigh, and the foot. I mean, that's you're not just talking about one injury. You're talking about at least 4. What's therapy been like? So
far, it hasn't been too bad. The main focus has really been on keeping the rest of my body strong, to keep me on the crutches, keep me going. Here in about 5 weeks is when I'm going to start therapy on my foot and be able to bear weight on it again, and that's when it's going to get painful again. Now, when I got out of Grant and I started therapy at Morrow County, it was kind of tough there for a while because my blood levels were so low. Every time I would stand up out of bed, I could only be up for 30 to 45 seconds, and I would start to pass out from blood just leaving the brain. So it was very grueling there at the beginning, and I have a feeling that once I could start on the foot, just by how it's feeling right now, it's going to get painful again. But the Lord gets you through it, and I'm going to get through it again. A guy of the lowest rank in an agency to receive the level of support from the number one is just, it really keeps you going to know that if you're doing your job and you're doing it right, then they're going to, your boss is going to be behind you 100%. That helps you get through everything else because you don't have to worry. And that's the kind of support that he's shown, and that just really gets you through it. And as far as the award goes, I mean, that's just one more step of the kind of support that he's been showing.
I hate to make you go back over some of that, but...
All right. So, yeah, this one here hit here in the side of the large metatarsal and came through the foot this way and ejected a large portion of the foot here, just right off the foot. And then the one that hit me in the leg hit on this side, just a couple inches above the knee, and shattered the femur right about here. Then, of course, there's the one that, the groin shot that blew the scrotum apart. The one here that hit my side, it hit right about here in the rib cage, pretty far down. Broke that rib and sent rib fragments into the spleen. And then the bullet that hit the rib bounced up and is under, right here just outside the rib cage.
Oh, the bullet's still in there.
Still in there.
You think you'll carry that for life?
I'm going to want to get it out because it keeps hitting against stuff and pinching against the ribs, so that gets pretty painful sometimes.
Well, I guess there's something I hadn't asked you yet. I mean, you don't seem like you have any anger or any residing, where you're mad at life because the way life has treated you. Do you feel any of that?
No, not at all. There was a lot of bitterness there about the first week or so after I got shot towards Shane Roush for doing this to me. But I carry some pretty firm Christian beliefs, and as the Bible says, that when someone sins against you, you're to forgive. And so after about a week, I was able to basically come to a point where I decided to forgive whether I was feeling it or not, and then I would let the emotions catch up. But I decided at that point I'm not going to let myself become a bitter man because of what I'm dealt. I just had to move on. Of course, the Bible also says that the governments that are in place are put in place by God, and when someone breaks those laws, he's still going to have to answer to breaking those laws. But as far as what he did to me, I can forgive the sin, not necessarily the crime.